It's Wednesday, June 8th, and this is now on H&N.
I had to get another job just to pay for gas.
We'll take a look at why gas prices keep going up and why there's no relief in sight.
It's not going to get fixed in the next 12 months.
How pilot shortages could impact summer travelers.
And they still went ahead and moved forward with it.
Operators of illegal vacation rentals file a suit alleging a new city law is unconstitutional.
Nearly 400 people have signed up to run for office in the August 13th primary.
A closer look at the biggest races in this year's local election. That's coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thanks for watching This Is Now. I'm not there in the H&N Digital Center today because I, like so many others right now, have tested positive for COVID-19, so I'm working from home. But coming up, why remote working isn't working for many companies anymore. But first, let's toss things over to Ashley with more of today's news.
That's right, John. Let's start with the latest on gas prices that are only going one way, and that's up. The latest Honolulu average gas price is about $5.50 a gallon. Carter Evans has more.
With no relief in sight at the gas pump, Americans are digging deeper into their pockets.
I had to get another job just to pay for gas.
And it just keeps getting more expensive as countries turn away from Russian oil, limiting global supplies. But those eye-popping prices at the pump still aren't scaring away summer travelers, according to oil analyst Tom Closa.
How high is it going to have to get before people actually really pull back on driving?
Well, that's an experiment in progress right now. But my sense is that people are still going to take vacations.
The high demand could drive the national average to $5 a gallon within weeks, enough to push some people to give up gasoline for good.
All electric vehicles, I cannot keep them in stock for more than 2 hours.
That fast?
Goes that quick, yes.
Kia is the second biggest seller of electric vehicles behind Tesla. The company's EV sales are up 132% from last year.
For electric, with the money. See?
Sounds like a no-brainer these days.
Yep.
At a Senate hearing Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned lawmakers that pain at the pump could continue.
It's virtually impossible for us to insulate ourselves from shocks like the ones that are occurring in Russia that move global oil prices.
Another wild card, hurricane season. About 50% of the nation's refining capacity is along the Gulf Coast.
If a hurricane hit and knocked 10% of our refining capacity offline, what would that do?
But I think a hurricane really alters the calculus. Then you get into the $6 to $7 a gallon range.
So when are we going to get some relief? Well, many analysts think we won't see gas in the $3 range until at least next year. But there are two things that could drive prices down very quick, and neither of them are very good options. We could have another COVID wave or a recession, and no one wants that. Carter Evans, CBS News, Los Angeles.
An important tourism update to get to. We're getting more visitors, but still nowhere close to pre-COVID 2019. In June of 2019, we got 35,000 arrivals a day. We're at about 30,000 now. The big difference is the lack of Japanese guests. We got 566 arrivals from Japan yesterday, but that compares to 5,050 on the same Tuesday in 2019. But mainland arrivals are up 12% to Maui, 27% to Kona, and 34% to the Garden Isle. So if you're not on Oahu, you won't see any gap. Well, we talked about this story a lot here on This Is Now. Airlines canceling flights, blaming it on pilot shortages. Well, the problem doesn't appear to be going away anytime soon. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
The great escape of 2022 is out of the gate.
You have a completely full flight today?
But even if you booked your summer travel months ago, beware. The airlines are still struggling with staffing and schedules. American Airlines just announced it's grounded 100 regional jets because it doesn't have the pilots to fly them.
we're hiring 2,000 pilots this year. Getting them all through training is a real task.
Virtually every airline has grounded some of its regional planes or cut their schedules.
I'm deeply sorry.
Alaska Airlines CEO saying last month it all came down to pilot staffing.
Simply put, we had 63 fewer pilots than what we planned for when we built our schedule.
The most affected airports, smaller cities serviced by the regional airlines that have lost pilots to the big carriers.
There's just not enough pilots, and it's not a quick fix.
What happened? During the pandemic, many pilots took early retirement, and the airlines did not expect passengers to come surging back so quickly. Complicating the problem, pilots are required to retire when they're 65, regardless of their physical health.
I think 65 is the new 50.
Rich Seiler has been flying for 40 years, first with the Navy, then Delta. He had to retire earlier this year when he turned 65, even though he felt he could keep flying.
We are trained, we are evaluated constantly. We should be able to come back in and do the job until we physically or mentally can't do it.
Now, Congress may consider raising the retirement age, while Republic Airways wants to lower the flight hour and training requirements for new pilots. The big airlines and the unions are opposed. In the meantime, fewer pilots, fewer planes, and fewer seats could be a problem that lasts through Christmas and for years to come.
It's not going to get fixed in the next 12 months, that's for sure. Some CEOs at United are saying it's 3 to 5 years of this type of issues.
This problem, not limited to the airways, Norwegian Cruise Line has been bumping guests from the Pride of America ship, that's the one you see there in Kaka'aka quite a bit, for a lack of personnel to take care of those guests on their inter-island cruises. NCL was already booking at half capacity for health and safety reasons. The plan was for 550 crew members, not the usual 930. But the cruise has been unable to maintain even that many. It never announced this news, but it was confirmed when bumped passengers complained to travel agents that tipped off cruise industry news outlets. But the cruise has been
The city's new law to crack down on illegal vacation rentals has not taken effect yet, but it's already facing a legal challenge. Critics do not want to overturn the entire law, but as Rick Daysog reports, they want to keep it from changing.
The people suing the city say they weren't operating illegally. They have been renting out their apartments or spare rooms for 30 days or longer. But the new law would force them to rent for at least 90 days.
And it's unconstitutional, and I believe the city and county knows this, and they still went ahead and moved forward with it.
Their suit says that the law is unfair to landlords who have been renting out their units on a month-to-month basis for decades. They also say they're not the cause of problems associated with illegal short-term rentals, like noise and parking. They also say the new law harms consumers who need legal temporary rentals.
When military families transition into or out of military housing, they frequently need a place to live for 30, 60, 90 days. And another example is the traveling nurses who have been coming to Hawaii, particularly during the pandemic.
Attorney Greg Kugel says the economic toll will be enormous. The city had no comment. The mayor in the past has defended the law.
No, we don't believe that at all. In fact, we think just the opposite. And, more than anything, preservation of our neighborhoods and what's happened. And I absolutely believe that we'll see more housing come back to it.
He also said he was ready to defend against legal challenges.
All lights were green on our signing of this bill today, so we feel like we've done everything accordingly.
But the owners say they're not seeking to overturn the entire law. They just want their existing rentals grandfathered in so that they can continue to rent on a month-to-month basis. Rick Daysog, Hawaii News Now.
Now, the 9th Summit of the Americas is underway in Los Angeles, and John Decker, Hawaii News Now's White House correspondent, is there. Hey, John, so with the U.S. hosting, we get to set the agenda. So what are President Biden's priorities for the summit?
A number of things are going to be discussed between the U.S. and the leaders of 20 other countries here in Los Angeles. Among those issues, climate change, dealing with the recovery from the pandemic, economic and trade issues. But the biggest issue on the plate for the president and other leaders is the issue of immigration. The mass migration that we've seen over the course of 18 months coming to the U.S.-Mexico border. A reminder of that, a caravan of 5,000 migrants that have left in the past 2 days from southern Mexico heading to the U.S.-Mexico border. So that is the primary issue that will be discussed during the course of this 3-day summit.
Yeah, as you mentioned, 20 countries, more than 20 countries participating, but Mexico's president saying he's boycotting the summit. How big of a blow is his absence, especially with immigration being such a big topic of discussion?
It is a blow, and the White House is disappointed, although they don't verbalize that. They make the point of saying Mexico's foreign minister is here in Los Angeles representing the country. That being said, there are a number of countries that have not sent their leaders here to Los Angeles. Besides Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and each of those countries play a critical role in dealing with this migration issue. The reason why they're boycotting this summit, they are disappointed, they are upset that not every leader in Central and South America was invited to this summit, namely the leaders of Nicaragua, of Venezuela, and Cuba. Not invited, reason being, the White House says, is because those countries are led by dictators, and they say they are not welcome at this summit. So that's the reason for the boycott. The president of Mexico, President Lopez Obrador, will be meeting with President Biden, but that will be next month in the Oval Office to discuss these very same issues, primary issue being immigration.
Now, John, for our viewers who don't know, what is the significance of this summit? You know, is this just political theater, or can we actually expect some actual action to take place after this?
This is the 9th Summit of the Americas. The first one started way back in 1994 under President Bill Clinton. I actually attended that summit in Miami. And these are not political theater. They're an opportunity to discuss issues face-to-face with leaders in North, Central, South America. And as far as deliverables, what we expect at the end of the summit is a framework of understanding among all the countries that are here represented on the issue of migration, on the issue of immigration, a commitment to stem the flow of the mass migration that we've seen over the course of the past 18 months.
All right, Hawaii News Now's White House correspondent John Decker in Los Angeles. We appreciate the time, John, and safe travels.
We're counting down the days to our local elections, and those races are heating up. We got an update today from Silver Beach, Chad Blair. He talked to Grace Lee on Sunrise.
I want to talk about the governor's race. Governor Ige termed out this year, and on the Democratic side, we know that Josh Green, the current LG, has been very vocal about the fact that he wants to run. He's had the most time really to talk about it and the most time to raise money. Big advantage?
Oh, it's a huge advantage. In fact, Josh Green, I would say, has probably been running for governor since he was a kid, if you ask me. But what he really also has going for him, in addition to a big campaign war chest, a lot of the major unions have endorsed him, and he's got that name brand recognition. Remember, he's a medical doctor. We saw him all over the news during COVID. So Vicky Cayetano and Kai Kahele will be giving him a heck of a run, but it's going to be a tough race.
Do you think the voters will be able to shift the way they look at Vicky Cayetano from being the first lady to possibly the governor?
I think so, but remember, her last name is Cayetano, and
that
still
will help name recognition.
Probably will. And Ben Cayetano, the first Filipino-American governor, he did serve 2 terms, but can she use her business experience running Young Laundry to say, look, this is what the chief executive should be, someone who knows how to run a large operation?
And for Kahele, he is entering late. Is that going to be really hard for him to try to catch up, especially with his grassroots campaign, the small donations?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing. Can you really run a campaign if you are taking $100 or less compared to thousands of dollars from other organizations? I'll say this, he's hungry, he's ambitious, and he's got a pretty strong name recognition. It's a heck of a race.
All right, Republican side. Duke Iona entering the race at the very last moment. How is this going to change the way the Republicans go into the primary?
Really caught me by surprise. Duke Iona, of course, was lieutenant governor for 8 years. He also ran unsuccessfully for governor in 2010 and 2014. But you have a large field. You've got BJ Penn, you've got Heidi Tsunayoshi. There's at least 3 or 4 others last time I checked. So that's a very crowded GOP primary. That name recognition is also going to be key because you only need a plurality of the votes to win that contest.
And I just want to point out with this primary, a lot of people think, oh, it's a primary. primary, but in a highly Democratic state like ours, a lot of times these big races are decided in the primary, right?
Yeah, they are, but you got to give the Republicans credit. They have fielded a lot of people, more than I've seen recently, and so they're going to give people a run for their money. And there are many Republicans that will advance to the general. We should see some interesting matchups.
All right, Congress, want to talk about that. Biggest names there because a lot of things moving around in that.
Well, Ed Case, he's the incumbent in Congressional District 1. That's basically urban Honolulu.
Right.
And he's running against Sergio Alcubilla is how it's pronounced. He's brand new, never run for office before, but he's kind of coming from the left flank of the Democratic Party, trying to unseat Ed Case, who's been in politics for a long time. Then there's Congressional District 2. That's the rest of Oahu and all the neighbor islands. Interesting race. Jill Takuda, former state senator, against Pat Bronco, who's currently in the U.S. House, rather the House. Not yet. You're not in the House yet. That's the State House of Representatives, right? There are also Republicans running in both of those races.
All right, so there's a lot here. Now, if you want to check it out, make sure you go to civilbeat.org to check out their article.
To the COVID numbers now, the health department reported 8,033 new infections and 8 additional deaths in the past week. That's down about 90 cases from last week. The state's COVID figures do not include positive at-home tests, so the real number is likely far higher. Health officials did say they're watching the trends and that they're worried about where cases are headed.
Well, I'm doing it today for the very first time, and I'm not sure how I quite feel about it just yet. But surveys show that the majority of employees out there prefer to work from home. Since many offices reopened, they're offering things like flexible and hybrid schedules to lure, attract, and retain workers. But times, they're changing. Here's Gabe Cohen with more.
As Shannon Archuleta hunts for a new tech job, deserting her home office and spending less time with her father has become a deal breaker.
I will only work remote. I, have the flexibility to be able to take care of the things and responsibilities that I need to while being productive for the workforce.
It's a growing source of tension between employees and management. Surveys show millions of workers want to stay home and would likely quit their job rather than go back to a daily commute. Now, more executives may test that. Elon Musk is the latest, demanding Tesla workers return to the office full-time or quit. Goldman Sachs is already back full-time, and 90% of JP Morgan's U.S. staff is there at least 3 days a week. Their CEO, Jamie Dimon, saying work from home doesn't work for those who want to hustle, according to Reuters.
I'm trying to fill up office buildings.
In New York, Mayor Eric Adams sent a memo telling city workers to get back to the office to re-energize the city's economy. A May survey found 76% of high-up executives say in-person work is critical. But overall, as of this week, employee office visits are barely over 40% of pre-pandemic levels, largely because in this hot jobs market with 11 million openings, workers have leverage.
If the employers put a firm stake in the ground and say, you must come back, there's that risk that people are going to move to a new job.
Apple delayed its return to office plans after backlash from employees, as did Cognizant, which helps operate Google Maps, after more than 100 workers signed a petition, some threatening to strike if forced to return.
We have been extremely productive and successful in these last 2 years, so it's a huge win for us.
A survey tracking remote work since the early pandemic shows more companies are coming around on a post-pandemic hybrid work schedule, with on average 30% of workdays done from home, compared to 5% pre-pandemic.
In this case, it's very clear that hybrid is here to stay.
This will become one more differentiating factor among employers.
One looming wrinkle, projections of a market cooldown and possible recession in the months ahead, which could tilt the tables and give employers more leverage.
Over the next 90 to 120 days, we should fully suspect that it won't just be the Elon Musk of the world. There are going to be a lot of CEOs who are going to demand that employees come back to work, at least partly.
Now, John, TV news is kind of a difficult job to do at home, but how's it going so far?
So far, so good. Our IT team really hooked me up, and so far it's been going pretty smoothly. This is, like I said, my first time doing it ever in this entire pandemic experience for all of us. But yeah, so far, so good.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, so I mean, I can imagine there's some challenges and some distractions.
Yeah, things would move a little slower as far as like dealing with files there at the stations and bringing them into my computers here. And then Davis, our photographer friend, brought over so much equipment for me. It's really taking up my entire living room here. As I said at the top of the show, I did test positive for COVID-19, but I'm feeling good. I hope you can see that. Just a small fever. Everything's feeling pretty good for me. So, I'm feeling lucky because I know a lot of people have had it much worse than me.
Yeah, well, your
But
setup
just to
looks
give you an
great.
idea. Oh, thank you. I'll ruin the illusion for you real fast because this is what I'm dealing with. Right there.
Okay.
Right there.
The magic of TV.
Yeah, magic of TV. But you know what? Let's go ahead and switch gears. Enough about me. Let's toss it over to Guy Hoggy with the check of our weather.
We've got these trade-ins running 10 to 15, 10 to 20. And that means it might be a little sticky at times. There might even be a little bit of fog and haze in the air. Rainfall minimal, a few windward and Mauka showers. However, when the winds pick up, you can expect a slight increase in those windward and Mauka showers, especially on Monday and Tuesday. Still, we're not expecting a washout anytime soon.
All right, guys, it's the time of the day where we take a look at what the internet is talking about. And you know we love our biopics here at This Is Now. Well, check this one out. From Ozark to Material Girl, Variety reports Julia Garner has been offered the lead in Universal's biopic about Madonna. Now, the Emmy-winning actress had been considered a front-runner for the highly coveted role. Madonna herself, the queen of reinvention, is set to direct the film. No pressure there, huh?
Yeah, and I love Madonna and I love Ozark, so I'm really curious about how this is going to go. And Madonna directing, I didn't know she was into that biz.
Yeah,
so.
and she's a great actress too, Julia Garner.
Yeah, she is. And Madonna's had some good roles too. I like Davida. That's pretty decent. All right, here's what I found. Another one of those auction stories. Christy says this one is very, very pricey too. A 3 centuries old Stradivarius violin could fetch $11 million at auction next month. It dates back to 1679 and is engraved with diamonds. Yeah, the maker only did these engravings and embellishments on about a dozen of the roughly 1,100 instruments he created. I have no musical skills, but it looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous and well worth the price, I think. And finally, it is National Best Friends Day. So whether they're near or far, old or new, best friends help to carry us through our lives. So take the time today to tell them how much you appreciate them. The Mayo Clinic reports friends help you cope with trauma. They also encourage you to change or avoid unhealthy lifestyle habits. So thank you to all the best friends out there.
Heart to you, Ashley.
Feel better.
And that's going to do it for this 3, 2, 1. And that's going to do it for this edition of This Is Now. Ashley is back at 1st at 4 on KHNL. Don't forget, we're podcasting all the time. Get us on the go. Just search Hawaii News Now wherever you get your podcast. Want to leave you today with this adorable video. A rare albino Galapagos giant tortoise made its public debut at a zoo in Switzerland. Have a good one.